Hi everyone, I hope you're feeling good after finishing our topic 4, which was microbiology. Now we're on to the nitty-gritty. We're going to start looking at some of the systems. So we've done all the preliminary stuff and now we're going to do the systems. And the first system that we're going to be looking at is going to be the nervous system. So don't get nervous about studying the nervous system. So here are our learning outcomes, and you've got my contact details, and remember these are our learning objectives, which is pretty much what we're going to be basing our assessments on. Okay, so what does the nervous system do? Well, it controls everything. Okay, and you will see as we go through all the aspects of the nervous system, everything that it does. Okay, so it controls all of your actions, all of your thoughts, all of your emotions, everything. Okay, now if we look at our schedule, I've got it here, you can see that we've got 2 weeks for the nervous system, so because it's so important. Okay, so you will see after the 2 weeks that everything that the nervous system does and controls. Okay, essentially the nervous system detects things, does something with that information, and then produces a response. Okay, so it's designed to pick up sensory information, stimuli, changes in the environment. So detects changes, does something with that information, and that interpretation part we'll get through. I can show you how that happens. Don't worry too much about it now. And then it does a response. Okay, so that is essentially 3 main jobs of the nervous system. Here it is. Here is an image showing that. For example, we have photons coming from the sun all the way into your eyes. Okay, so the sun is a star and it spits out photons. This is just one example. And it takes 8 minutes for that little photon to travel through space and hit you in your eye. It goes through your eye and to the cells of your retina and causes those cells to react. Okay, so you literally do have stars in your eyes. Okay, so this is detecting light. The nervous system does something with that information and then something happens as a response. Okay, so you've got sensory information coming in, some kind of integration, and then motor information coming out again. So the nervous system is made up of 2 major parts. Okay, so the anatomy of the nervous system is made up of 2 major parts. Okay, the first part is the central nervous system, okay, which is sometimes abbreviated to CNS. Then we've got the peripheral nervous system, which is the PNS. Okay, that's how it's abbreviated. So 2 major anatomical divisions. The central nervous system is subdivided into the brain and spinal cord. So there's only 2 parts to the central nervous system. And the peripheral nervous system is everything else that's nervous tissue. And that includes nerves and things called ganglia. Okay, and we're going to look at ganglia later on. So what we can do is we can create this little concept map and you can fill in the blanks. You've got the nervous system having 2 anatomical subdivisions. Central nervous system is the brain and spinal cord, remember? And the peripheral nervous system is everything else, which is essentially nerves and ganglia. Okay. All right, so here is a picture showing that. Can you see the central nervous system in this kind of skin colour? Brain, spinal cord. Can you see the spinal cord doesn't go all the way down? Yeah. And the peripheral nervous system is just these yellow bits. Yeah. So the nerves are just bundles of axons, which you'll learn about in a minute, and ganglia are just these bulgy bits, and I'll tell you what they look like later on when we get to them. Now, there's a lot of information on this slide, okay? But what I want you to understand is that the nervous system is divided up two ways, okay? It's divided up two ways. And maybe read this slide after we go through it here. So it has an anatomical subdivision, okay? So based on just the structure, we have the nervous system having a central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, brain and spinal cord. We did this already. But the nervous system also has functional classification, or the nervous system is divided up into two functional areas. So we can divide the nervous system based on anatomy, and then we can divide the nervous system based on function. So this is the functional part, okay? So the functional subdivisions of the nervous system, there's two of them. There's a sensory division and a motor division, okay? So sensory division deals with information coming in, okay? So information comes in, goes there, and ends up there, okay? That's the first functional subdivision. The second subdivision, functional subdivision, is the motor division. And the motor division deals with information coming out. Okay, so here is our brain and spinal cord. We start there, we go through here, and then we come back out again. Okay, now the response or the motor information, there's many different types, and we'll get to those in a minute, but just make sure you understand this. The sensory division carries information from sensory receptors to here, and the motor division carries information from here to effectors or a response. Okay? We're going to see lots of examples of this. Okay? Here is another kind of mind map here. So the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. Okay? But I think that this division here is not quite correct. I like this one better because information coming in has to go through the peripheral nervous system before it gets to the central, and vice versa. So I like my picture better, but it's up to you. Okay, I think my picture is probably more accurate. All right, here we go. So let's have a look and see what a neuron is. A neuron is just the cell that makes up nervous tissue. Okay, so remember we had populations of cells. Populations of cells make tissues, all right? So there's three kinds of neurons. There are things called sensory neurons, okay, that bring information in. There are neurons that sit in between the sensory and the motor one, and then you've got the motor neuron that creates a response, tells muscles what to do, tells the glands what to do, okay? So they are the three kind of different classes, functional classes, okay, of neurons. So can you see here how my picture was more accurate? Because you've got peripheral nervous system, then it goes to the central, then it goes back out in the peripheral again. So I like my picture wins. Here we go, here's another picture. So in this particular behavior or kind of neural network, they've only got 1 neuron, 2 neurons, 3. So 3 cells do all of this. Detect something in the environment, create a response. 3 neuron chain. Okay, so let's talk about these neurons that we were looking at before, the cells of nervous tissue. It's a cell, but it's going to be a specialized cell, okay? So let's have a look and see all the bits. Look, you've got the cell body, all right, plasma membrane, nucleus, just like any other cell, okay? Has all of the organelles that you see. But look at the plasma membrane. Can you see how the plasma membrane just creates like a tree? Yeah. And it's got this long bit here called the axon, and then it's got all these little feet. Okay? So an axon, it really is a very specialized cell. Okay? This little bit here we call the axon hillock. We'll see the axon hillock later when we talk about the action potential. Yeah? And axons are actually really long. They can actually be like 1 meter long. Very, very, very long. Okay? Right. Another thing that axons have are what I call groupies, which are all axons need supporting cells. Okay? And these cells are the supporting cells. So we'll look at those in a minute. These are the ends of the axons, and we're going to study this in more detail when we look at how 2 axons communicate with each other. So essentially, if I go back a step, we are looking at this bit. Okay, the end bit. This is the little axon terminal, and we're going to, when we do synaptic transmission, then that's when we're going to be learning about what happens there. Okay. But just for now, this little spot is how one axon communicates with the other guy, with the next one along the chain. Well, as I said before, we can look at synaptic transmission later, so don't worry too much about that now. And this is the top end of the axon. See, it's called a tree because it looks like a tree. Yeah? Look, lots and lots and lots of different branches. So essentially you've got lots and lots of different branches up here. You've got the cell body, and then the signal, which is an electrical signal, okay, just like electricity. It's going to move all the way down here to the end little bits here, little synaptic knobs or the terminal branches. Okay, so the signal starts here, ends here. Right, like I said before, axons have cells that are there to support them, okay? Now, so nervous tissue is made up of 2 principal kinds of cells, the neurons and then the cells that support the neurons. Because they're so important, they need lots of supporting cells. Now, these supporting cells, they're called neuroglia. Okay? Now, this is a picture, I know there's a lot going on here, of some neuroglia. Okay? This guy here, see this one? He's an astrocyte because he looks like a star. He's a supporting cell. This guy here is a supporting cell. This one is a supporting cell. This one also is. Sorry, what am I pointing to? This guy here. He is also supporting. Okay? So there are quite a few cells that support your axons. And there are different kinds, whether you're in the central nervous system or in the peripheral nervous system. Okay? So in the central nervous system, we have these 4 kinds of supporting cells. And in the peripheral nervous system, we have these 2 kinds of supporting cells. Okay? This guy we will talk about later when we talk about the blood-brain barrier. Okay? This guy makes something called myelin, which I'll show you in a minute. this guy hangs around just eating up things that shouldn't be there, like bacteria or dead bits of cells or debris. And this guy makes cerebral spinal fluid. In the peripheral nervous system, this guy, okay, also is supportive, so it kind of maintains a nice chemical environment around the neuron. This guy makes myelin, okay? So they all have a different job to do, and they're all found in different places. So what is myelin? Well, myelin is something that wraps around the axon, okay? Wraps around the axon. Now, it's important because the more myelin you have, the quicker the signal is going to go down the axon. Okay? Yeah. So the more myelin you have, the quicker the action potential. Let me just show you what I mean. So you'll know this in a minute. So here's my axon here. Look, these cells, can you see? Look, they wrap around the axon. So this is the axon, and this is the cell wrapping itself around. And so this is one cell, this is the other one. So this axon has 5 cells wrapped around its axon. So this neuron has 5 cells wrapped around its axon. And there are gaps, okay? See the gaps between the cells? And those gaps are called the node of Ranvier, okay? So this is a different kind of myelin setup. So this is called the oligodendrocyte. This cell sits in the central nervous system, and this one wraps around the axon as well, okay? And here is another kind as well. This is in the peripheral nervous system, and here we have, so it's a bit misleading because sometimes, so people term these axons as being unmyelinated, but the fact of the matter is that here is the axon. So it kind of does have a little bit of myelin, okay? But even though this kind of setup is called unmyelinated, I know it's confusing, yeah? So what it does, it increases the speed of the signals, okay? And I don't think they've actually worked out exactly how it does that, but it just does, okay? So if your axon is unmyelinated, the signal is going to go like 2 meters per second. It's still pretty fast, right? But if it's myelinated, look, 15 meters a second, 120 meters per second, that is super quick, okay? So that's the whole point of having myelin. So I did a few pictures for you, and clearly I'm an outstanding artist. But just to show you the different kinds. So this is like a Schwann cell. Can you see how it's flat like a pancake with the nucleus? And this is my axon. And let's pretend I'm just going to cut this way and just have it as cross section. So see how this cell here, Schwann cell, just gives the axon a hug? Right, so that's one myelin kind of setup. Okay, let's have a look at this one. See, this is one axon, many Schwann cells, because you can have lots and lots and lots of them on there. Let's have a look at this kind of setup. You've got one Schwann cell, but many axons snuggling in. So it's like you have a bean bag, and you have multiple people snuggled into the bean bag. Okay, that's this second kind of setup. And then this setup is found in the central. So this is all peripheral. This is central. This is those oligodendrocytes, and they act a little bit like octopi or octopus. Can you see how you've got one cell, but they hug many axons? One cell hugging many axons, okay? One cell hugging many axons, and this particular one is many cells hugging one axon. Okay, so hopefully that kind of makes a bit more sense to you. And let's have a look at a clinical application, multiple sclerosis. Look at this. They don't know why this happens, but look, those little neuroglia start to die. Yeah? Not good. So you lose your myelin. Not good. You keep the axons, but the myelin is all ratty and broken. Not good. All right, so this is what we've done today. We've done the nervous system has two anatomical divisions. We looked at that, central, peripheral, brain, spinal cord, nerves and ganglia, and then we looked at neurons and neuroglia. All right, so hopefully you learned a little bit about the nervous system.